Irreverent, entertaining, cool. You're listening to LA Talk Radio.
You're listening to What Women Want with Judy Goss, only on LA Talk Radio.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for tuning in. Welcome to What Women Want Talk Radio for our show tonight called Positively Affected by Disabilities. I'm your host, Judy Goss, along with my superstar co-host, actress and producer, Kristin West. I want to say before we go on, just how sorry I am for what happened in London. It just affects all of us around the world, and I want to send my prayers and thoughts out to them because, having been, experienced 9/11 when I was living in the city, there are no words for it, and no matter how many people are affected by it, we all get affected around the world. So I just wanted to put that in. Okay, What Women Want is coming up on 3 years. Oh my gosh, that we've been 3-year anniversary, and we want to thank every one of you out there for getting us over 700,000 downloads so far. We just love every show. And if you want to listen to past shows, go to LA Talk Radio's website archives or subscribe to us on iTunes or go to Google Play. You'll hear some of our celebrity guests like Marsha Clark, who was gracious enough to come on and chat with me for the second time when the FX show came out about the O.J. Simpson trial. And in addition to Marsha, we've had sports stars, 5-time Olympian Jackie Edwards, famous actresses, TV hosts, entrepreneurs, love coaches, tarot card readers, all kinds of women who are so inspiring and so unique in their very own ways. You are listening to What Women Want here on LA Talk Radio for our show tonight, Positively Affected by Disabilities. Now, this is a show that will showcase the courage, strength, and fortitude of two amazing women, founder of Daily Migraine, Lisa Jacobson, and also Samantha Elandary, CEO of Parkinson Voice Project. I can't wait to hear from them. We're going to bring them on in just a few minutes. Okay, a little bit about your hosts this evening. I'm Judy Goss again, and besides my awesome radio show, I'm also a TV host, a regular contributor on NBC and Fox, an entrepreneur. I founded the nationally acclaimed What Women Want networking group 5 years ago that now has 20 chapters around the country, a St. Martin's Press author, and I am a freelance writer for New York Lifestyles magazine. And the most important job of all, I'm the mom of twin girls who are now almost 13 years old. Whoa, having two 13-year-old girls in the house is quite interesting, I must say. So I have an announcement. What Women Want Networking, my company, is having our first national conference called Spirit of Women in Atlanta, October 7th through 8th. Now, this has been a dream of mine for about 4 years now. And we have our first VIP sponsor. I'm proud, honored, thrilled, excited to say it's the founder of WomenForOne.com. She's got millions of subscribers on her site, all telling their story from over 60 women from over, and some men actually, from over 60 countries around 60 countries around the world. It's Kelly McNellis, and she will be running a workshop as well as sponsoring called Embrace Your Voice and Make Life Happen. And she certainly knows how to do that with all of these people that she's talking to on her site, blogging about their stories and posting all of their stories. So I'm just so excited. We'll be having more information soon about how you can get tickets. It's going to be one epic event. Let me tell you that. The first Lifestyles Networking Conference, I'm pretty sure. I'm gonna claim that and wait till somebody tells me it's not true. I've never heard of a Lifestyles Networking Conference. So my philosophy, and for the show too, has always been about the well-rounded woman. The balance and peace comes in learning everything about ourselves, not just business, not just health or spirituality, but all of it. And our website is whatwomenwantnetworking.com. So stay tuned for more of that. We're going to have some game-changing women attending. I hope you can join us. And my other host, I don't call her co-host because she can very well do the show herself and has, and I love listening to it when she's doing it. I just adore her, Kristin West, an award-winning actress and producer. She's the winner of a Best Actress Award for the film Seeking Valentina. Now, Kristin was nominated for Best Actress and the Mary Austin Award for Female Producers. And she also won the Indie Spirit Award a couple of months ago at the Idlewild International Film Festival. Wow, Kristin, so impressed with you. Fill us in on the latest from Hollywood.
Well, it has been raining here and traffic has slowed, but it's a beautiful green. Nobody, for your listeners that are not Angelenos, people here do not know how to drive in the rain. We're not accustomed to it, so traffic's a little slow, but I'm looking from our beautiful LA Talk Radio studio at this beautiful lush green, and I'm feeling so blessed and lucky to be part of all of this.
I know, it's such a great view from the studio, isn't it?
Oh, it's
I love it.
Gorgeous.
Yeah, no, totally. Well, I'm loving also our guests for this evening because they have such unbelievable, causes that they've really passionately developed and gone after. And each story is so different and still so inspiring and just really these are game-changing women. So I'm going to bring on the first one, Lisa Jacobson. After suffering over 9,000 migraines, I can't imagine that number. Lisa Jacobson has found out that there was no community of migraine sufferers, so she started one herself. TheDailyMigraine.com has grown over to 300,000 subscribers. The site focuses on education, research, exchange of tips, and new information for migraine sufferers. Welcome to the show, Lisa.
Thank you so much. Thank you. It's great to be here.
I mean, I don't know how many migraines I've had. I had them for a couple of years, pretty routinely, but 9,000, Lisa. My gosh. That's crazy. So this is something you live with every day, I guess.
Yeah, I had neck surgery, and before that, in my 20s, and before that, I never had even had a headache. And suddenly, a month later, I started getting these debilitating headaches, and it turned out that I had migraines. And luckily, I was diagnosed pretty quickly, but I had them every day. I had little kids. I had my own business to run. Like most people with migraine, I had, whole life I had to deal with, and I was responsible for a lot of people and a lot of things. And somehow I made my way through those days, and now it's 28 years later, and actually 2 years ago I went into remission. So it's I never expected to, and I'll say that when I started the Daily Migraine was 3 years ago, and I was at my worst, and I said to myself, I've always wanted to do something that helps solve a social issue using my business skills. And so I decided to put a stake in the ground and start the Daily Migraine because I didn't know anybody else who had daily migraines. So I did, and immediately people just gravitated to it because, there's a huge stigma that migraine is, quote, just a headache. But it's not.
Oh, dear,
really
no.
Serious, and most people who have had it even once know. It's a serious neurological disease. It's devastating. So what we have to suffer, people with chronic migraine, is that, because you had it, sound, light, glare, this, that, kids screaming, and you have all the stuff you have to do.
I cannot imagine. I didn't have kids at the time.
Right, but then on top of it, which is really devastating, is that many people, in your world don't believe you because they think you're just having a headache, and so you must be lazy or making it up or faking it. And so when I put the stake in the ground and called it the Daily Migraine and started a Facebook group, and the next thing I knew, it was exploding. So I post about 10 times a day, and it is my complete passion project. People feel like they're not alone anymore. They share with each other. I post articles and migraine art that I create and all sorts of stuff to help people with migraine. And most of all, just to bring us together. We're the largest group of people with migraine anywhere in the world.
That's amazing. And it really is a beautiful website. Kristin, have you ever had a migraine?
No, but my mother, well, I can't say absolutely no, but I don't have them with that frequency. My mother had issues with migraines, and they would be triggered by photocopy machines or different eating the wrong foods, or sometimes just no trigger whatsoever, and taking beta blockers. And it's a really challenging and horrible thing if you don't have a coping mechanism for it. And what I would be interested in knowing from you is, obviously people kind of blow it off and say, oh, it's just a headache. What else do you think the general public needs to know about migraines? Because it affects a lot of people.
Right, and if you add, first of all, it's 37 million people in the U.S. It is the third largest disease and the sixth most disabling disease in the world. And so people need to know that a headache is an annoyance, and all of us have had headaches. But a migraine, it's not even the same animal, except that it's in your head. It's defined as as extreme, exquisite sensitivity to light and sound. There's nausea, there's vomiting, and it's very, very hard to function. So I always say,
and dizziness.
People who have never had it, imagine, you have chronic back pain or chronic shoulder pain, which is very painful. Now imagine you have that times 100 in your head, in your brain. You can't think, you can't speak. I mean, I've discovered through the website and through all the social media channels that, I'll ask questions like, what are your symptoms? And I discovered over time that, some people have a visual aura. It's like a visual hallucination. We all know that. But I discovered that people also have smell hallucinations, sound hallucinations, taste hallucinations. I noticed one or two people said that they smelled ammonia and cat urine, okay, and cigarette smoke that wasn't there.
Jeez.
So then I said, do any of you smell cigarette smoke, cat urine, and ammonia that's not there? And it's like it went viral. People
no
went,
way.
Oh my God, I thought someone was smoking. Oh my gosh, I thought, there's a cat, but I don't have a cat. And so there's so many symptoms there. And there are 300 kinds of headaches and migraines. So there's some where people have stroke-like symptoms, people have extreme vertigo, people have pain and it's not even in their head.
I don't know how you dealt with this being a mother. Can you tell us how, what to do? What there are people out there, I'm sure, that are just feel useless, helpless, and devastated. Is there something that you can do?
Yes. I think the first thing is to realize that your children are very resilient. My kids have just gone off to college, and this started before they were born. And in the beginning, and I know a lot of people will relate to this, they would bring me ice, and they would lie with me, and they would, hope, and you feel like so proud, but you feel so guilty. But in the end, and
because you're supposed to be taking care of them, right? We think we're supposed to be taking care of them.
But this is pretty much what everyone ends up saying when their kids are older, that the kids become very sensitive and very caring people, and both of mine turned out that way. And I think a lot of it was seeing what I had to go through, and I just did whatever I had to do to function. And parenting is one thing, working is another thing also, is you have to support yourself. You can't just not work. And so what happens is many of these people get fired, if they're at work, they find themselves, I can't tell you how many people have found themselves under desks with a coat over their head, throwing up in a bucket, and that's how trying to make it through the day. It's really, it's preoccupies your every second. So the thing is, there isn't any money in research. And this is why people say, isn't there a cure? No, because people think it's just a headache, so it doesn't attract funding. It doesn't attract doctors. The top headache doctor told me yesterday that some of the other doctors would say to him, why would you do that? I mean, it's just a headache.
Oh, no.
So it's rough.
He did not say that.
Yes, and he realized that he loved doing it, and so do the other 500 headache specialists in the U.S., but there's only one headache specialist for every 65,000 migraine patients.
Wow.
So that's what the problem is. So I decided, along with other people, that we really want to get the word out, and we really want to change the stigma. And once you change the stigma, then you can attract funding and you can attract doctors.
Well, let me tell you something. The DailyMigraine.com, 300,000 subscribers, they are so lucky to have an advocate like you out there fighting for them. Because...
That's so nice.
No, absolutely. I noticed that you said you started the website 3 years ago and you went into remission 2 years ago. Therapeutic?
It's funny. People say, well, I don't think they were related. I mean, it would be such a great story if they were. But I will tell you, I was at my worst. I was so bad I could barely get out of bed, and I have my own company and, my kids and everything else. And so I what I did was I usually do 3 things at once, and I outline this on the website. It's all free. I don't make any money on it, all self-funded. And I say, and so the idea is you try 3 things at a time. 1 medication that the doctor gives you, 1 alternative therapy, like maybe acupuncture, and something else, like maybe changing your diet. And then I would do that for 3 months, go back to the doctor. If it didn't work, I'd try another 3 things and another 3 things. But it was so bad that I tried 10 different things. And somehow it worked. And I don't know which of the 10 worked, so I have to do all of the 10. And I'm happy to continue because it's like the day I woke up with no migraine, and then the next day and the next day and the next day, it's a miracle. It's a miracle. Every day I wake up.
It really is. I mean, I'm just sitting here with my jaw open going, this is crazy. 28 years, and then all of a sudden, it's gone.
And so I thought I was going to be helping people by saying, look, I haven't been able to help myself, but I'm a real expert as a patient at this, so I'm going to help you. But instead, I have a clear head, and I can go out and do all these things now. I could have never even done this radio show.
Well, you went out and did the migraine hat. You invented something called the migraine hat?
Yeah, so I think you'll love this. So
I already do with the name of it.
I decided that I want to do something like the ALS Ice Bucket Challenge, but who can think of an idea like that, right? I mean, so I thought, and I said, you know what? Every time I ask people to donate money to migraine research, nobody does. You can't, it just doesn't work that way. It has to be clever. So then I came up with the idea, so ice makes most people feel better. You lie on an ice pack, but you're horizontal, and you're lying in bed, and it gets warm, or it drips. And I had this idea, what if I could put ice packs into a hat? And so what I did was created this black, fleecy, really cozy, comfy hat. It looks like sort of like a North Face hat that you wear in the winter. Mm-hmm. And I designed it. It took 8 months. I designed it with engineers, and it has Velcro. You quickly rip it open, and you have to, because when you're nauseous, you can't take the time, to have to play around with it. But you quickly put in the ice pack, and then you put it on your head. And if your migraine's like a 9 out of a 10, really bad, it knocks it down to like a 7. It just dulls it because the ice dulls it. And then you can go to sleep. But if you're a 7, it dulls it down to like a 5. And then you're vertical, right? You're standing up because you have this thing on your head. You don't have to hold on it. And then you just have like a bad headache. And any of us with migraine would take a bad headache any day of the week. And suddenly you could put your kids on the bus. You can cook. It's annoying, the headache, but it's nothing like the migraine was. And so what it is, it's $29.95. It's called Migraine Hat. You can get it on Amazon or migrainehat.com or on my website, The Daily Migraine. And it comes with 2 ice packs. It's people say it's changed their whole life. And what happens is I take whatever money I make and I give it to migraine awareness. So basically, my idea was to create something very inexpensive that would help people with migraine, and then take the money I made from them and give it to charity. So that's my plan, and it's been going like gangbusters, and it's just so simple, but there's just not anything out there for migraine. So people are so happy to have it.
This conversation is not going how I imagined it, because I never would expect you to say that there was no, funding or people won't support your cause. And it's just shocking, really.
Shocking because there's so many. And in the world, there are
37 million, you said? What did you say?
37 billion in the world. I have people writing me because, in some of the very poor countries with no health care, they have nothing, but they do have a phone, which is fascinating. So I have people writing me from small little towns in Iraq and Africa and Nepal asking me what to do. I mean, it is so serious, and it's been around since the beginning of time. So that's what we're really hoping that, by getting this out, and the migraine hat is great because your family never quite knows what to do for you. Even if they're good to you and they're understanding, what can they do? And it's, by the way, it's an invisible illness. So on top of everything, nobody can see it, and they don't believe you. So I hope everybody will buy Migraine Hat on Amazon or on migrainehat.com, buy it for their family, buy it for their friends. people will really appreciate it. It's really cool, it's clever, and it really looks like a hat. So I wear it to the gym. I wear it everywhere. You can go to the movies. I mean, it doesn't cure your migraine, but nothing does. So the idea is you want to manage it. So, and it fits little kids and it fits large people. You know, a lot of kids and teenagers get migraine.
You know, we
Lisa,
have a caller.
Sorry to interrupt you, but I believe we have a caller that's called in. Hello?
Okay.
Hello? You're on LA Talk Radio. This is your co-host, Kristin West, who's speaking.
Hello, this is Roxy from Strip Chat.
I'm sorry, could you repeat?
This is Roxy.
Is routinely experiencing that. I'm just thinking about that hat for her because she is always diving for the ice. I bring her to the chiropractor, and the chiropractor says, "Don't chew on the ice because you get more of a headache chewing on the ice." So now she can't chew on her ice. Now she likes to put it on her head. But I mean, that's fantastic. That's a great invention. The dailymigraine.com. And this is fantastic.
And I hope the other thing I want to say is for all the people with migraine who clearly don't have anyone to talk to or whatever, if they follow especially on Facebook, but also Instagram and Twitter, but on Facebook, I can put articles, I put studies, I put questions, I put all sorts of stuff.
And hundreds of thousands of empathizers.
Yeah. And I think what happens is I'll say something like, I think today I asked, when do you get your migraines most frequently? And it's fascinating. Most people seem to say that they get them in the middle of the night or in the morning. Like, nobody really gets them in the afternoon. There are all these things like that. That's how I discovered. I said to people, do you taste a strange taste that doesn't exist? And everybody said they taste metal or blood. And so you start, even the top doctors have said, Lisa, you have more people in one place than we ever have coming into our office. And so anecdotally, you can ask questions. People want to know about medical marijuana. They want to know about daith piercing, which is a new piercing that people have found that works. So I cover all this stuff, and it is such my pleasure. It's such a passion project for me.
Well, it is our absolute pleasure to have you on here and to let everybody know about, really the truth about migraine sufferers and the funding and all that. And kudos to you for what you're doing and making this community, before you got better. It's not like you got better and then thought, oh, I want to give back. And you were in the middle of it and really suffering. So you reached out and people are reaching back. So good luck to you, because I really feel like this is, and I'm feeling guilty because sometimes I look at my daughter and think, oh, it can't be that bad. But you know what? It just, you can tell the migraine difference between the basic headache, and it is so much more traumatic. And I'm so happy.
And I want to leave your listeners with one thing, because I know you have to go, which is that I want to give them hope, because people feel like they've tried everything. Everyone says that. But the truth is there are dozens and dozens and dozens of things to try. And so it's hard to have patience when you're in pain like that. But just like what happened for me, the treatments that worked were right around the corner. If I had given up after even 25 years, I would have never found it. And I have an incredible new lease on life now. And that's what I want to say, is you feel like giving up and nobody believes you, you just can't. You have to have hope. You can never lose that.
I can imagine it would make someone easily depressed with going through something like that. And I'm sure, again, it must have taken such strength and courage to stand up and start, finding other people that have the same symptoms. So good for you. thedailymigraine.com. Go get that migraine hat. Even if you don't have migraines, I think it would just help with a regular headache or sinus, infection.
Or hot flashes or anything.
Oh, yeah, totally. Oh, my gosh. I can imagine it right now. So thank you so much for coming on the show, Lisa. What you're doing is just so admirable and impressive. And I appreciate you taking the time.
Thanks so much for having me.
Absolutely. And Kristin, talk about, not giving up. This next guest is just as impressive. Her story is so different, but I can't, I'm just sitting here with my mouth open going, how do these women do it?
Well, it's amazing, and I'm so pleased to get to introduce Samantha Elandary, because she's the founder and chief executive officer of Parkinson Voice Project. She holds a BA in Communication Disorders in English and holds a Master's in Speech Language Pathology. And since 1999, Mrs. Elandary has been working exclusively with individuals with Parkinson's, and she's devoted her career to making speech therapy services accessible to this patient population. The Parkinson's Voice Project is a 501c3 nonprofit organization, and it is the only nonprofit organization in the U.S. solely dedicated to restoring the voices of those with Parkinson's. And they're actually opening a new education center in April. And April is Parkinson's Awareness Month. Welcome to the show, Samantha. How are you this evening?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me on the show.
Well, I'm so excited about the work you're doing because I personally, as a person who uses their voice constantly, I could not imagine having my ability to speak or articulate impaired in any way, which is why I'm so intrigued by the work that you're doing. How did you get started, first of all, in speech and language pathology? What led you to that profession? What's the passion behind that?
Well, I was born with a cleft palate, so I went through several years of speech therapy as a child and as a teenager, and I was always self-conscious about the way that I spoke. And when I was in college, I was studying to be an English major. I was going to be an English teacher, and I needed a minor, and so I went and took some communication disorders classes. I thought that would be interesting because of my experience with the cleft palate, and then I really liked it. I thought it was very interesting, and so I went on and got my master's in speech language pathology. But the way that I got involved with people with Parkinson's, a lot of people think that I must have had a family member or, a friend with Parkinson's or a grandparent with Parkinson's. But after I got my degree in speech language pathology, I was working at a hospital, and in 1998, I was put in charge of the Parkinson's program there at the hospital. And it was then that I found out that people with Parkinson's can actually dramatically improve their ability to speak as long as they have intensive speech therapy and then they keep up with the exercises. So 89% of people with Parkinson's can struggle with their speaking skills. And it's hard to really understand if you've never had a communication disorder, but maybe somebody who has had laryngitis and can't talk for a few days, maybe they could understand what it feels like to lose the voice. In somebody with Parkinson's, if it's left untreated, the voice can become so soft that it's even worse than a whisper. It means that the person with Parkinson's would be moving their lips and no sound would be coming out. And although there's no cure for Parkinson's doesn't kill a person. They will live most likely as long as they would have lived if they didn't have Parkinson's. So what can happen is they can lose their ability to speak and be like that for 10 or more years if they don't receive the treatment. But I was working at a hospital and things were going great and I was enjoying treating the people with Parkinson's. But then in 1998, Medicare came out with the Medicare therapy caps. And a lot of your listeners may have heard of that, where Medicare limited the amount of therapy, speech and physical therapy that they would pay for in a year. And everything kind of fell apart. And people with Parkinson's need intensive therapy and they need ongoing therapy. But with the Medicare therapy cap, it was going to be very hard for a hospital to be able to provide that. And so I left the hospital and I started treating patients out of my home. And that's when I started working on Parkinson Voice Project. It was 1999. And it took me until 2005 to start Parkinson Voice Project. So it took a lot of trial and error. I tried to become a Medicare provider. I tried to start a private practice. I thought maybe I could provide treatment in a church. There was just all these different things I was trying, and it wasn't working out. And finally, I realized that the only way to provide people with Parkinson's with the intensive treatment they need was to go and start a nonprofit. And so I did that in 2005.
I was perusing your website earlier today, and there was something so truthful on your website, and I want to point it out to anybody who hasn't explored your website yet. Is people judge your intelligence, and your competence by the way you speak. People make assumptions about you, about your geographical location, your level of education, how much you care about something just based on your ability to speak. Can you speak to that and how that affects people with Parkinson's? Because the voice is in many cases limited, and even the ability to swallow, I understand, can be limited. Is that right?
That is absolutely right. The same muscles that we use for speaking are the ones we use for swallowing. So if people do not address the speech issues as the Parkinson's progresses, they could have trouble swallowing, and then swallowing difficulty can lead to food and liquid going down to the lungs, and people can end up with aspiration pneumonia, and that is the main cause of death in people with Parkinson's. So now that's not the main cause of death at Parkinson Voice Project, because our patients are getting the treatment that they need, and they're keeping their speech and swallowing muscles.
Oh, how great is that? I just want to interrupt. That is just so amazing. Unbelievable. Good for you.
It is amazing. Yeah, it can be very scary with Parkinson's. But if you think about it, if somebody has a physical disability, they can still work. They can, go to work and maybe use adaptive equipment or something, and they can talk on the phone, and they can work on the computer and all of that. But if somebody can't speak, they can't do anything. They can't talk on the phone. They can't hold down a job. I guess, I suppose maybe they could do something on the computer where they never talk to anybody. But it affects everything. We can't do anything in our life that doesn't involve, especially socially, talking or eating. It affects everything. And so it can just make you feel terrible. People end up talking for you. You can't order your own food at a restaurant. You can't go through a drive-through. You can't answer the phone. It's just really, really terrible. And I'd love to give you an example of something. Every now and then, I know why I started Parkinson Voice Project, but every now and then something happens that just really makes me think about the mission and what we're doing. The other day I went to visit one of my patients who is in the hospital, and she's in the hospital for something non-Parkinson's related. And I was talking with her, and her voice was good. She sounded so good. I was so proud of her, and she's been in the program since 2008. So she has kept, even though Parkinson's progresses, it's a progressive neurological disorder, her voice stays strong. But when I was talking to her, I told her, I'm so proud of you for speaking out, for keeping your voice strong. And the name of our treatment is called Speak Out. And she said, Samantha, I'm speaking out, but I'm not speaking up for myself. And I said, well, what do you mean? And she said, well, the other day an aide came in to give me a bath, and it was a man. And I didn't want a male to be giving me a bath. I was really uncomfortable. And she said, but I didn't say anything. And I said, well, why didn't you say anything? She said, I don't know. It was just the way everything was happening. I didn't feel comfortable saying anything. And she said, but the next day I did say something. She said, so now it's always been, a woman nurse that's come in. And it made me think that whole day I could not stop thinking about what she told me. And I was very proud that she had her voice. But most people with Parkinson's, if they don't get the treatment they need, I was just thinking about a person with Parkinson's in the hospital who is not able, their voice is so weak that they're moving their lips, that had she not gotten treatment, she wouldn't have been able to express her wants and her needs and participate in her medical care. And how would that make her feel? And it's just, April's coming up. It's Parkinson's Awareness Month. We have so much work to do. We've got over 1 million people with Parkinson's in the United States. There are 7 to 10 million worldwide. 89% are at very, very high risk of losing their ability to speak. And like you said in the introduction, there are lots of different Parkinson's organizations. But Parkinson Voice Project is the only one addressing the speech deficits associated with the condition. And there are so many people to help, and we cannot work fast enough.
Now, Samantha,
go ahead.
I'm sorry, speaking to that, you're in a lot of different states besides Texas, right? I saw a map on your website. How many people does your program reach?
So we run a speech therapy clinic in Richardson, Texas. And something I want to tell you is that our clinic in Richardson does not charge patients for therapy. Since 2008, we have funded the program entirely through donations and a pay-it-forward system. So anybody with Parkinson's can come to our clinic, receive the treatment they need. At the end of treatment, they're given an opportunity to make a donation to help the next person. But we realize that it's not realistic for everybody to come to our clinic, and there's so many more people to help. So in 2012, we started offering speak out workshops for speech language pathologists to train them in our treatment protocol. And so far we have trained over 300 speech language pathologists in the United States. We've even trained a couple from Japan and one in Finland. And we are going to be launching in April an online version of our Speak Out workshop. So now speech language pathologists from all over the world will be able to learn all about Speak Out, and will be able to, learn the method and then go and treat more people with Parkinson's.
Now, I also saw on your website, and all of that is amazing. My mind is just blown. I also saw on your website that singing is part of the therapies that you use, that you get Parkinson's patients to sing, and that helps the speech. Because I know before the show, to warm up my voice, I actually most of the time do a little bit of singing. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Absolutely. So Parkinson's is caused when the neurons in the brain that produce a chemical called dopamine die or become impaired. And dopamine affects our movements, our automatic movements, but it also contributes to our motivation, our drive to get things done. So I would love for your listeners to know that Parkinson's is a movement disorder that is battled by moving. The more you exercise, the better, get out and do things and be proactive. But the problem is, because they don't have enough dopamine, they're not motivated to do those things that would help them. So in 2006, I started our singing program, and at that time it started with about 18 people with Parkinson's. And now, once a year, we put on a show called Sing Out, and we have nearly 100 people with Parkinson's sing for a crowd of, last year we had 900 people show up to the show.
Oh my goodness.
So singing, we prepare for the show all summer long, and this gives our patients something to work towards. Singing makes us feel better. It's great exercise for the voice. It works on the breath support and the articulation and the inflection patterns. But the idea of giving people something to work towards, something that is challenging and fun, and we have a wonderful music director, and the singing program is actually run, it's different from other groups because we have the music director and we have the speech language pathologist. So music is great exercise, but our program, our singing program, is actually the largest in the world. And the songs we sing are pretty complicated. If you go on our website, you can see some of the shows that we've had, and this year is going to be great, and they're singing two-part harmony. And this is very different when you compare it to other Parkinson's groups, but what makes it different is all of our patients go through one-on-one speech therapy first, and then they enter the singing program in order to maintain the strength of their voice. And so around the world, there's a lot of different singing, Parkinson's singing programs, but I think they might be missing that first part. You need the intensive therapy first. You need to work with a speech-language pathologist, and then use the singing as maintenance, which is wonderful and fun.
Well, I was very privileged as a kid to grow up around music, and as part of learning speech as a very small child, my mother made sure that I sang a lot. And so I always have that as part of my background. I can see how it would be therapeutic for people who have speech challenges. Do you, in your profession, are women drawn to this field? Is speech-language pathology a woman or female-dominated field? And if so, why do you think that might be?
Well, it's definitely dominated by women. We have the American Speech Language Hearing Association has over 190,000 speech language pathologists, and audiologists as members, and definitely I believe the number is less than 10% would be men. We don't really know the reason for that. I looked up an article earlier today to try to prepare for today, and it said really they think it's maybe branding or something like that. I mean, speech-language pathologists can make a good salary. There might be some limits in maybe moving up. I mean, if you start as a speech-language pathologist and then you want to be a clinical supervisor maybe, so maybe that's one of the reasons. There's not a lot of different steps as far as moving up, but I don't really know the answer, except that I can tell you that our treatment at Parkinson Voice Project is based on the teachings of Daniel R. Boone, a male speech-language pathologist who has been in the field for 60 years. And our treatment, Speak Out, the main premise of Speak Out is to teach people with Parkinson's how to speak with intent, how to be deliberate, how to focus, how to concentrate. I tell people to use your CEO voice. And Dr. Boone is the one who recognized in the late 1950s that people with Parkinson's could speak better if they speak with intent. And the way he found that out, he was working with a neurologist, and they had patients count from 1 to 15, people with Parkinson's. And when they counted from 1 to 15, they could barely be understood. Their speech was soft, it was mumbly. But then Dr. Boone asked them to count backwards. And when they counted backwards, they said 15, 14, 13, and their speech was louder and clearer, and they could be understood. And what he realized was when people were counting forwards, they weren't really thinking about what they were doing. It was coming out automatic. But the automatic system is affected by dopamine, which people with Parkinson's don't have enough of. So when they counted backwards, they were thinking about what they were doing, and they were using intent. So Dr. Boone is he's a world-renowned speech-language pathologist, a male, has written several books, and our whole treatment is based on, on what he's done. But it definitely is a women-dominated field.
Well, I think what you did was hit the nail on the head, not just for people with Parkinson's, but in life in general. When you speak with intent, I think you are naturally more powerful, and you take ownership of what you're saying and what you're doing. And talking about intent, just to kind of come full circle here with you, how can someone who has an intent, excuse me, to start a nonprofit,
what's the first step they take to start a nonprofit? And I just want to interject here real quick that, it seems like almost every show that we have, it circles around to this whole intent and setting your mind to doing something. And, you're really saying a lesson, not just for people with Parkinson's, but for everyone that's listening, that's no matter what they're going through, is that the mind is a powerful thing. And if you have something you want to do and you put that kind of intent behind it, you're much more likely to succeed. So I think what Kristin wanted to ask was if someone wanted to take a step out and start a nonprofit, what's the first thing they would do?
Well, you definitely have to use a lot of intent. That's for sure. I think there are lots of people that are very passionate about a certain cause, and they think, I'd like to go out and start a nonprofit. I think we have to be prepared for failure. We have to be prepared that things aren't always going to work out. We have to be creative and find different ways to work it out. When I started the organization, we have these groups. After somebody goes through individual therapy, they become part of what we call the Loud Crowd, which is our maintenance program, and that consists of the speech and singing groups. And when I started the program in my home, I facilitated 12 groups a year. Now, Parkinson Voice Project conducts over 500 groups every year in our one clinic. And I think that you have to be willing to work hard, know that things are not always going to work out. I think that with a nonprofit, it is extremely important that you follow through with what you say you're going to do, and that I think you have to prove that you're going to keep the mission straight, and you're going to adhere to your mission for the long term. So when people first hear about Parkinson Voice Project, they think it's a neat thing. And, our big donors don't come from the ones that we just meet or the people that just receive treatment or things like that. It's people that we build the relationship with over time. So our biggest donors who helped me to get Parkinson Voice Project started in 2005. These were patients or family members of patients that I was taking care of for the past 5 or 6 years, and they saw over time my commitment and my passion, and that I wasn't giving up. And you have to get people to also see your dream and see what could be. And at the very beginning, it's so hard. It's really hard. You feel like you're by yourself just trying to do it, and you feel like a lot of people aren't listening, but it takes time for people to trust you and to build that relationship with them. And raising money is all about the relationship building and people trusting you. And this past holiday season, Parkinson Voice Project raised over $1.5 million, which is enabling us to now add on 3,200 square feet to our speech clinic that's going to be our education center. But it took many, many years in this relationship building to be able to do that.
Samantha, so how do we connect with you online? Where do you want us to go to support your endeavors, to learn more about your programs? How do we find you online?
Several different ways. We would love for you to visit our website at parkinsonvoiceproject.org. We would love for you to go to Facebook. On the second Saturday of every month, we are going to be hosting lectures at our education center with Parkinson's experts. So we're having doctors and pharmacists come in and give these lectures. And all of these lectures are going to be posted live on Facebook, streamed live on Facebook, and then they will be posted on our website afterwards. So people with Parkinson's and their families can watch it, and they can go to our website.
Well, Samantha, thank you so much for sharing that with us. I'm so excited about the work that you're doing, and I think it's really valuable and important what you're doing. And thank you so much for joining us this evening. And everyone, join us next week when we bring on some more awesome guests. It's all here on LA Talk Radio, or go to whatwomenwantRadio.com for more info. Thank you so much for listening. And everyone, have a good night. Thank you all.
You're listening to What Women Want with Judy Goss, only on LA Talk Radio.